Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fedora S3 demo. My name is Danny, and I'll be your guide for the next 5 minutes as I demonstrate how Fedora integrates with S3. In this demo, we'll cover the following things. First, we'll look at how to configure Fedora to connect to S3. Then we'll create some resources, and I'll show you how they appear in S3. Finally, we'll demonstrate how you can bring up a new Fedora instance on top of an existing Fedora OCFL that's up in the cloud. So let's go to my terminal first. Okay, you'll notice that I have 3 terminal windows open here. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to create a bucket using the AWS command line tools. And that bucket's going to be called Fedora OCFL S3. Okay, so that's done. Now over here, I've got a couple of fcrepo.properties files. Okay, I'm going to show you the one that has no credentials in it. All right, so here we have our fcrepo home defined as /Fedora_home. We needed to tell Fedora that we're going to use the OCFL S3 connector. So we have fcrepo.storage equals OCFL-S3. We have the region here defined, not necessary if you're using US East 1, but I just thought I'd call it out. You want to define your access key, your AWS secret key, and then here we have the bucket. So I just created this bucket, Fedora OCFL S3. Here's Fedora OCFL S3. And then finally, I'm going to add an optional prefix to my bucket. So everything's going to land in a directory in the bucket called Fedora or fcrepo data. Okay. Now I'm going to run a Docker container. Okay, so I'm using the latest snapshot. You can use the latest release of Fedora. I just happen to be using snapshot. You want to use, notice that I'm mapping my Fedora properties here into my Docker container. Okay, so you can see that right here. So you can see I'm using this -v directive that's saying on my local machine, I've got this path, and that's going to be mapped to this path in Docker. Then I'm telling here using the Catalina ops environmental variable to tell Fedora to look for the properties here. Okay, and it's more or less all you need to do. I'm going to start up my Docker container, which is now configured to point to S3. And while that's starting up, we can take a look here and see, actually, close this. Let me just show you. We have, okay, so Fedora is starting up. It's not quite started up here. But when it does, okay, server is started up. Okay, and then we can go and just take a look at our Fedora instance. So notice that it's an empty instance. Okay, let's create a couple of resources here. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then I'll create a binary within that. Call it binary1, and I'll choose a photo off my desktop and add it. Okay, so that has been added now to S3. Well, it's been added to Fedora, and it should have landed in S3. If I look at my Fedora OCFL S3 bucket, so I'm using the command line here to list out the resources, you can see that there's all of these resources are living in this FC repo data bucket, and this is all just standard OCFL in S3. Okay, so let's go back here. Now, suppose we want to shut down our Fedora instance, and maybe the machine on which that Fedora instance was running gets destroyed or corrupted or something. So let's destroy the Docker container. I'm going to remove, let's see, remove all traces of the Fedora application. So notice that, so you can see it better here. There's Fedora Home. I'm going to remove the Fedora Home directory, which has some sort of temp files. It has an instance of the local embedded database that we use for indexing. It's all going away. Okay. In fact, I could even remove the entire directory. Just remove everything. Okay, so there's nothing except for the configuration properties left on this machine that has anything to do with what we just created. And if I go here, notice you can no longer access this endpoint. Well, all we do is just start Docker back up. It's going to connect to S3. Fedora will re-index itself, and we should be back in business in a couple of moments. It's rebuilding, which takes a moment, and now it is up. So if we look at our Fedora instance, we can see, sure enough, everything is right there where we put it. We have our test 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our binary underneath it. So we just covered how to configure Fedora. I took you through the configuration file, what properties you need to set. I showed you how that data lands in S3. And then I showed you how we can bring down our Fedora instance, obliterate any traces of it on our local machine, and then bring it back up and have it restore from that S3 data. So that's all there is to it. Please see the docs if you want to explore all the available config options. Here are some other links to getting connected to the community by joining our mailing list, wiki, and Slack channels. Please try out Fedora, see if you can, what you think of the S3 connector, and let us know how we can help you be successful with Fedora.